I already went through the idea of making a codex, which was a very time-intensive activity comparatively to writing something on a scroll. But you have to also then put with this the idea that these texts were really long. Remember, we said Romans was 7,100 words long. One scholar says that just to copy the book of Romans would take you about 11 and a half hours of focused work. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't handle 11 and a half hours of focused work in a single day. So this would take multiple days just to copy the text besides the binding of the codex. So if we're putting it all together, one copy of one book of the Bible could take maybe even weeks to make. And yet the Christians were copying all the time. The sheer volume of copies of the New Testament that we still have now, assuming that many of them have gone away or been destroyed over the last 2,000 years of history, is unsurpassed in antiquity. We have a couple hundred copies of Julius Caesar, for example. We have 24,000 copies of the New Testament. The Christians were copying and copying and copying, even though it cost them time and in many cases money. On top of this, you have to understand that the early Christians did not have a postal system. So it's not like you could make your copy of Romans, your couple weeks of work, and then shove it in the mailbox and the Romans would just take it to that person that you want to get that copy of Romans. You actually had to take it yourself, which took time, took money. It was not safe to travel in the ancient world. Yet the Christians were willing to do that. They were willing to sacrifice so that they and others could read the scriptures. Let me ask you this. We don't have to copy the Bible for one another anymore, but are we willing to sacrifice for the scriptures? You know, one of the things that I run into as a pastor, especially when I do one-on-one visits, home visits with some of you, is this idea when I talk about reading the Bible at home that, I need to find some space in my schedule to do that. Or I really wish there was some more time so that I could read the Bible more. And don't worry, I'm not singling out any one of you. This comes up all the time. It's a very common refrain that I hear from people. If I can just be very honest, I love you guys, but that will never work. It will never work. You have time for what you believe is valuable, and you will make time for it. And you will sacrifice other things for it. I mean, necessarily, whatever you're doing, you are sacrificing everything else you possibly could be doing at that moment to do that thing. If you want time to read the scriptures, you've got to be willing to sacrifice for it. So what could it be? What in your schedule could you sacrifice for the sake of knowing the scriptures? Not just for yourself, but for the sake of others? For having the time to be available when your neighbor wants to talk, or your family member needs some encouragement? Maybe you could sacrifice watching TV, or listening to podcasts, or playing video games, or watching TV, or maybe a sport you participate in, or maybe watching TV. Maybe it's kids' activities, or maybe it's watching TV. Did you know that the average Canadian spends 2.1 hours a day watching TV before the pandemic? Now, I'm not saying TV is sinful, but I am saying that there is nothing on the TV right now that extols Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And while it may not be tearing down your faith, it's certainly not building it up. And I'm not saying you need to be a Luddite and take your TV out of your house, but I am saying maybe we could sacrifice a little bit of that so we could hear what our Savior has to say. You know, there are so many preachers on the TV who do not look like preachers. They are telling you to believe this, do this, fear this, sacrifice for this. And I'm not saying all of them are malicious, but they're not preachers of Jesus. So let's think about it. Maybe for you it isn't the TV, maybe it's something else. But are we willing to sacrifice for the sake of knowing the scriptures for ourselves and for others?